Good afternoon, well, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Bryan Shue. I have with me Brian Arrington from uh, Wells Fargo Invest Industry, and you're on lockdown with thought leaders. So, it's really exciting. So I personally know Brian for over a year and a half now. So, and being able to have him on this show was really, really awesome for me because I just want to hear his thoughts on what we're going to be dealing with as we go into this process of being in self quarantines and isolation and social distancing. So, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you for an introduction. Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us, tell the audience what is Brian Arrington.
Yeah, well, one, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate being on the show. And thank you to Derek Chu for having this, Full Moon Digital. Really appreciate all the support you've given. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Arrington. I just recently retired from the United States Air Force after 20 years, 1 month, and 12 days of service. That was on July 1st, 2019. And I was a pre-war enlistee, and I was one who stayed the course. And some of the things that I found as a retiree, or as somebody who was retiring, there was a lack of knowledge and resource accessibility for the veteran population and their families. And in that year time frame, I found LinkedIn by accident. Had no idea what LinkedIn was. Got a link in mail from a obscured individual. I had no clue who he was, and through that found a whole network of individuals through LinkedIn. And with that, it really drove me to desire to research all these free veteran resources that were out there, which ultimately led me to Wells Fargo, which I never would have considered myself a banker or getting into that space. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Right now, I currently run Vets to Industry, which is a free nationwide resource library for veterans, military spouses, and dependent work age children and dependent children that are underage. And we have over 90 volunteers nationwide that provide that free resources, benefits, knowledge, and career advice, along with housing free resources on a virtual library website at www.vets2industry.com. And I'm really happy to be on this show.
No, thank you so much, Brian. And that's I mean, fantastic introduction. And I just want to tell everybody that's listening to this, Brian Arrington has been a wonderful leader throughout this whole year that he's been leaving even the year before he left the Air Force. It was he really took hold of that information that was being passed to him and really ingrained it into his own transition story and into those around him. And I know it's probably been beneficial for those that you still communicate with back at Robbins about how they can successfully transition into civilian sector. One thing that, I think a lot of our people want to understand is, what does it mean to be a veteran in transition?
Oh, wow. That's a pointed question. So it depends. And I hated that answer when I was trying to get a job at Accenture, because I kept hearing, it depends. Well, what do you mean it depends? I just want I just want a job. How long is it going to take? Well, it depends. And it really, the same goes for a transitioning veteran. It depends on the career field you're in. It depends on the branch of the military you're in. It depends on the base you're in. As an example, if you are transitioning out of Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State, I consider that you're getting the Ritz-Carlton treatment of veteran transitioning. All right, you're getting the best of the best. Same thing goes for Lackland, Joint Base San Antonio. You're getting the best of the best in transitioning. If you go to some of the other locations that might not have some of the resources that are prominent around the country, I don't want to say that over on a recorded line, but you are not necessarily getting the Ritz-Carlton experience. You're getting the motel uh, uh, the motel treatment and don't necessarily have the same benefits and results that you would hope for. And then there's a knowledge gap. It also depends on the people around you and how much they know. A lot of the information that's passed around from veteran to veteran is by accident, and that's sad. If you or a friend within your network is not on LinkedIn, which is really where a lot of this information is provided and guidance, because it's not in the full TAP curriculum, it doesn't get passed on, you're going to miss out on opportunities, and you're going to miss out on those opportunities when you should have complete access to it. And that's years out from your transition. And without that information, because some of these things are time sensitive, you lose out. So for the transitioning service member and their families, it depends. Um, it depends on what they know that they want to do or think they want to do. Do they get revectored? Do they do a full-on gap analysis of their skill sets and what they know or think they know of what they might need for the role that they're going to apply for? Do they know what industries are out there? Do they know what kind of roles are in those companies, in those industries? Do they know the geographic location they want to move to? The cost of living? Have they, put enough money aside to actually go to those locations? Because Washington, D.C. is expensive. You might have the same kind of career opportunities in Atlanta, Georgia, and the cost of living is extremely low. And you could get a great paying job there versus going to Washington, D.C., but you might not think of that aspect. So it really depends. But what is straight across the board is it's scary. It's scary because you're not trained to transition out with a mindset of clarity that you feel you're going to land successfully. You just don't know what you don't know.
And you're absolutely right. That's very true in the veteran space, and even when you come to the civilian counterparts that are dealing with this as well, because transition hits them as just as much as it hits the veteran space. Granted, it might hit them differently, but I know you've had several conversations with your civilian counterparts about transition, and what have they told you about in the transition space for them versus a veteran or a military member?
Yeah, so for them, transition is a lot different for them, because they start off, if you think about it, there's different ways. One, they could go to a trade school after high school, right? Or they could go to a 4-year college or a 2-year college. They could work for a mom and pop shop or their parents. Many different ways. They become an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of different avenues that they can take. They learn on the job, and they move their way up the ranks, and then they learn within that industry, the language, the culture. They gain experience that way. So they grow up in that world, but it's still a transition. Anytime that they move from one job to another, it's a transition, but it's not as steep of a transition or drastic a transition as I would say that the military to civilian is, or civilian to the military. And we've all done this. Everyone who is a veteran has done this. They took the oath. They went in. If you remember your first 6 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever the case may be, depending on your branch, it was a culture shock, and it's the same culture shock as you're transitioning out. But this time you're coming with a family, all right, in some regards, and you're going into an unknown where you don't know if there is a paycheck on the other side. You don't know if there's housing on the other side. You have this freedom that is scary. And I think that's a big difference between the military transition and a civilian transition. But of course, I'm not the best expert on that because I had not gone from that world, from civilian to civilian jobs. But I can only imagine that's what they feel.
And when you speak about unknowns, and that's very common in today's world, especially now with the whole COVID-19 outbreak and the pandemic, and everybody's being locked down and quarantines and everything. A lot of people have been reaching out saying, "I've lost my job because of this.
Yeah.
I've my career, my company is shut down because of this." If somebody came to you and said, "Brian, I need some help," what kind of advice could you give them in this unknown time frame or during this unknown time period?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with what resources are available for them. And it really does determine or depend on the demographic. If they were a civilian that's asking me for help, I would definitely have them checking out the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, uh, making sure that they are on LinkedIn, that they do have a phenomenal profile, one that really brands them well, that they're active, that they're creating personalized messages on LinkedIn to recruiters in the area. I would make sure that if they had gone to a school, that they're utilizing their alumni association if they have not, and that they're going to possible career fairs where their alumni, their schools are hosting events. Uh, Perhaps they're part of, or they were part of a union back in the day. I would have them reach out to individuals that might still be in those unions and see what kind of networks they have. So there's a few things that civilians could do if they're don't have that veteran designator or have that background. For veterans, now there's a ton of free resources out there for them. That's my bread and butter. And so I would tell them, first and foremost, get a hold of Vets Industry. If you lost your job, if you're a veteran, we can help find you the right resources to guide you to finding employment, or at least guiding you to get yourself in a position where you can identify what areas you feel would be best suited for yourself and your family at that time. Maybe it's life needs. Maybe there's some other things that you would need first before the job happens. And these are things that we can help you identify.
Now you mentioned branding. Let's dive into that a little bit because that's a big conversation point both in the military and the civilian communities is how do we brand ourselves? Is there, what about your personal brand? What about your professional brand? How can I maybe merge those two together? Because, especially with this now work from home process, like I think you have been in kind of living in the world of, and I know I have, how do we merge those two together now when our lives are now suddenly thrown together? Because back, hell, even 3 months ago, you went to your office and then you went home, and
Yeah.
those two were separate. Now, hello, office, home, and now we're having to live in that reality. How do we make those two kind of sing together?
So you're gonna hate this. Depends. So no, uh, it really does. So do you have a family that is supportive of the work from home lifestyle? Do you have kids? Are they young toddlers? Do you have older kids that could help watch your younger kids? Do you have a spouse who also works from home, or are they a home worker where they take care of the children? Do you have a personal workspace set up, or can you create a workspace somewhere quiet away from the kids? So these are some of the things that you can work on. But the branding piece, that's a separate piece. So what I would say for branding is when you get on LinkedIn, you're going to be kind of in an ocean, and you're not going to know what to do, especially if it's your first time. And I really want to talk to the people when it's your first time ever on LinkedIn. You're not going to have a profile picture. You're not going to have anything in your experience section or your volunteer. You're going to have 1,000 different skills that you could put on there. You have no idea other than what you did in the military or what you did in college, and you have absolutely no clue what to put on there. So this is what I would suggest. first start off with a very nice picture of you in whatever kind of outfit that goes with the career that you're desiring. I always tell people to go with the suit or a nice, uh, dress uniform. If that is something that if you're going to be a construction worker, that's probably not what you want to go with. But for pretty much 95% of the other uh, organizations or companies out there, unless it's a Facebook kind of organization, a tech firm, go with the suit and tie. You can't go wrong with that. And then once you've done that, go and look at everything that you've done over the span of your career and figure out what it is you want to do, whether or not that mirrors with things you've done in the past or complete opposite. I was a military cop for 20 years, and the only thing I knew when I was getting out was that I did not want to be a cop or a security guard. So I made sure when I established my LinkedIn profile, you could not tell on there that I was a cop or a security guard. And I branded myself that way. I made sure my headline was set up to where I was trying to get into a corporate role, corporate America. I made sure that there was a veteran piece on there so that people knew, but it wasn't, veteran seeking employment. I made sure that there was a impactful statement on there so that people knew that I was serious about my brand and my transitioning. You also want to make sure that you have your experience with civilianized terminology. Now, this is really easy for the civilians out there because you speak the language. But for those that are veterans or military spouses, perhaps, it might not be as easy, especially if it's a first-time employment for a military spouse, a young military spouse, perhaps. So these are things that you're going to want to get a career coach, somebody to help guide you. And there's free resources out there if you are part of the military community. So do not go out there paying for these services. If somebody says you have to pay for it, come find Vets Industry. We're going to take care of that for you. You do not have to pay for resume writers. You don't have to pay for any kind of branding. All right. Come find us. We'll get you free resources. I promise you that.
And that's
for those
fantastic.
yeah.
And that's fantastic. I think that's a huge weight off a lot of their shoulders because when they do start talking to their civilian counterparts about, I need this and I need that, I need resumes, I need LinkedIn profiles, and their civilian counterparts are like, I pay $300. And that probably will scare some people away because they're going to be like, well, I don't have $300. Guess what? There's free resources out there, and that's a key part of the veteran community. And that's one thing that I would like our listeners to know is if you are a veteran, there's free resources out there for you to help you in whatever stage of your life that you are in. Whether it's your job seeking, you're in your career, or even you're like, I'm about to retire from my career. There's resources out there to help you with that. So I wanted to ask you, Brian, what has changed for you since this whole pandemic broke out? And if it has, great. What great part have you been able to enjoy now more than ever?
And my wife wants to pull her hair out. So we were
God
already,
bless her. God bless.
oh gosh. I get to escape downstairs or basement every day, and I do it more quickly in the morning and might stay a little bit later in the day than she would like. Wells Fargo, I'm sure, loves that. But no, we already homeschooled 2 of our kids. So for the audience out there, I have 6 children. 5 of them live with us, and the second oldest actually homeschools from home. She's a senior, and then I have my 11-year-old who homeschooled. Now having the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old home, whom have a ton of energy, and God bless elementary school teachers. Don't know how they do it, but my wife on literally the 3rd day came to the room, closed the door, and says, "How do people homeschool with more than 1 kid? I don't get this." Because, homeschooling a senior in high school is nothing. So it was really just the 11-year-old we were homeschooling. But now having 2 other elementary school kids, she's going batty. So what's
God
changed
bless her
for
for
me
that. I don't know how
is,
she deals with that.
yeah, no, I don't either, because I stayed in the basement. You see where I'm at right now. Uh, so I think the biggest thing that's changed is I am able to see the kids more during the day when they come downstairs and try to give her a little bit of a break. I was already work from home, so this really didn't impact me much. I do enjoy the when we go grocery shopping, there's like nobody in the store. I don't know if that's a positive on this. I mean, it's a positive for me, especially my PTSD anxiety. That's like I actually enjoy that, but no, it hasn't really affected the Arrington family as much as it's probably affected a lot of others. But I can empathize with the families out there who really are maybe in an industry where their job isn't secure. And I think that, me landing at Wells Fargo has really helped, because the financial district sector is in a better place than a lot of other industries, like the food industry. And I'm thankful for that. Thankful that I can still spend time with my family. My wife is a stay-at-home mom anyway, so we don't have to worry about her losing a job until the kids move out the house, and then thank goodness she's lost the job. But no, that's about it.
All right. So, what have you been able to do more, or what passion project have you been able to focus on more since everything has been going on, or what have you been able to kind of take under your wing now, as you've been at home more and been around your family more?
So the cool thing is, I love chess. I'm a strategic kind of guy. So with my kids being home, I've been actually able to play more chess with them, which has been fun. Teach them how. But also after work, I've been able to devote a lot more with Vets to Industry, because all of my volunteers are home and they don't have anything else to do. So it's really become more of an extension, giving them something to that they're already passionate about, to occupy their time where they know they're making an impact and helping other people. And so I'm able to give them projects and give them people that are in a bad situation that they can work with and help mentor and guide and drive towards resources. And it's fulfilling for them, because some of them are in a bad situation where they're trying to find a job, and so helping trying to find them careers, but at the same time they have that emptiness where, man, I really want to help other people. And you can still help other people while you're still trying to help yourself. And that's something I try to teach people. It's, when they say thank you, when I help them, or a Vets Industry team helps them get a job, or helps them find a way of paying their bills for the month, whatever the case may be, I say, don't thank me. Just say, how can I help? And ask others to pay it forward. And it really makes an impact, I think, in their lives. I can't hear you, Brian.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I actually had myself on mute. Obviously, I didn't want to hear myself. But and that's really crucial. And this is one thing that you and I have spoken about is having that vision to say, don't, it's not that I'm doing a service for you. You're doing a service for yourself, and being able to pay it forward has been so crucial in this success of Vets Industry. I know that for a fact. Um, could you tell me, and tell our audience especially, is what what does it mean to be an effective leader during this time period? Well, if you were to look back and say this is a moment of turning for you as a leader, what would that look like?
So I lost a little bit of you. Sorry, it cut out. So what was that last thing you said?
About being an effective leader, what would you tell somebody that's like, hey, I'm a manager, of 500 people.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not getting to my team. It's kind of falling apart. What would you tell that person to be more effective? To help
Yeah.
them, maybe to give them some ideas about being the effective communicator of their team.
Yeah. So one thing, and I'm actually really proud of Wells Fargo, because they've taken a stance and done some amazing things. but you have to be engaged. You have to know your team members. You have to be accessible and proactive with your team members. They might not be the extroverts that you are, or they might not be the introverts that you are. You have to make, as the leader, you have to make a concerted effort to reach out to each one, and as a group as a whole, and give them an opportunity to vent. I mean, this is a bad time for a lot of people, and they're scared. They're some of them might have a spouse who might be losing their job or have lost their job. They might have kids now at the home, and they're trying to help their spouse get a job, or they have to cook dinner, or they got to run errands during the day now, and they have to try to take their kids with them because their husband or their wife is out trying to find another employment, or they can't leave depending on where they live in the nation, because you might have remote workers all over the place. They might be in a state where there's a lockdown. So there's a whole lot of different entities that are involved in this, and you have to know your team members and what their situation is. And sometimes that's a phone call with them. There's no blanket policy. And if you take a blanket approach to something that is not a blanket situation, things are going to go wrong horribly. So open-ended communication, daily check-ins, maybe team building, like get on Zoom and let's say, hey, let's have a fun fireside chat and let's talk about what you guys did this week. Whose kid did the most craziest thing this week? Let's put it out there. Let's see who wins. All right. Whose kid, made the best project. All right. What kind of projects did you guys work on? Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that this week with my kids. Anything like that can help bring the team together and build some bonds. And, or, hey, what books are you reading right now? Because I know you got plenty of time because you're not doing your 1 hour commute to and from work, and you don't have to be in till 9. So have you picked up a book? Have you started reading a magazine? Have you started a new hobby, right? Have you volunteered for an organization like Best Industry where you don't have to be out doing anything? You can actually do everything virtually. Or have you found one, or is there one out there that you can donate money to if that's something you want to do? Whatever the case is, are you dropping food off at your neighbor's house because they're 75 years old and can't go out because they're immunocompromised? These are all things that you could think of doing and providing to your team. Hey, these are ideas that I'm doing. You guys want to do these things. So I think those are positive actions that can be taken. And I think that will help bring the team closer together, continue the communication, and when this thing finishes, breaks up, you have a stronger team at the end of it because you guys went through something together and not in isolation.
And that's a really key point about bringing togetherness. And I wanted a big point for you.
I'm losing you, Brian.
Oh, can you hear me? Is that better?
Yeah. Perfect. It was.
Yeah, you know how the internet is today. Obviously, It doesn't want to work right. What has been your favorite way of connecting with other people since you've been stuck at home? Because I know everybody's like, oh, I'm used to going to networking events. I'm used to being in the office. I can't be there anymore. I can't go to these things anymore. How am I supposed to network with somebody if I'm not in these events, or I'm at a career fair, or whatever the case may be? What have you found to be successful in networking in this?
So I got a great story
in this new normal.
So I got a great story about this. So it was about a month, maybe a little less than a month ago. I was slated to go to a Bunker Labs event in Atlanta, and that the week before I was supposed to go to 4 Block, and 4 Block actually got canceled, and 4 Block never gets canceled, and I was shocked because the leader of 4 Block, Roger Rowley, hardened vet, he doesn't cancel anything. You know, I love Roger. Roger, if you're watching, I love you, man. And I think it came down from higher that they had to cancel the in-person events. So I made a call to Zach Knight, who had invited me to the Bunker Labs in Atlanta event, where Michael Coles, the founder of the Great American Cookie Company, was speaking. And I said, "Hey, Zach, or is this still going on, or is this going to get canceled too?" And he said, "Oh no, man, nobody cancels on Michael Cole. That this is gonna happen." I was like, "Okay, cool." And sure enough, went to this event. It was phenomenal. Had a great time. And then when I was there, Don Edward Long, he was there, and he's with the Atlanta community, and we were talking, and he said, "Hey, are you going to the Vets in Tech event that's supposed to happen on Thursday, which was 2 days later?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it's going to stay on, or if it's going to get canceled?" He's like, "No, they'll definitely have that. You know, it's the inaugural, it's the kickoff." And 2 hours later, into that event on Tuesday at Bunker Labs, it got canceled. The Vets in Tech. Like, oh my goodness. So then I started thinking. I came home that night, and I was super upset. I was thinking, all these veterans here that are going to these networking events or we're planning to, everything's getting canceled. You know, we were lucky to have the Bunker Labs event, but everything's getting canceled. What can I do? I said, there's no reason why networking events have to get canceled. Why don't we do it virtually? And so I came up with that night about 1 a.m, putting on a vets to industry virtual networking circuit where we could actually have veterans, recruiters, business leaders from across the country coming onto a Zoom platform, which is my favorite. I love using Zoom. Come on there and participate in a networking slash, maybe some people get careers out of it. Who knows? But an event where people can keep that social interaction going. And set it up for a 4-hour event, April 4th. And we're planning on doing it twice a month, so that we can have at least 200 people twice a month go into these meetings. And we actually just landed John Tien from Managing Director at Citigroup to be our keynote speaker during this event. And he's going to talk about debunking the myths, good and bad, of veterans and military spouses and joining corporate America. So I think it's going to be a really amazing event.
And that's ingenuity right there, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, how many people will think of, like, you know what, let's host a virtual networking event since everybody doesn't want to meet together. Then again, how can you successfully network when you're 6 feet apart from somebody?
Yeah.
You can't really get to know them if you're that far apart. You
And
kind of
there's only
be
so much, almost only so much square footage that will allow for 6 feet of separation with a whole bunch of people in a room.
exactly.
So
So that's pretty awesome, seeing that kind of ingenuity out there, and I'm sure there's other people out there that are doing the same thing. And I want to, open that opportunity. If you're doing something like this, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your successes, your positives, your negatives, because that's only going to help improve this type of event for the others that are going to happen. So I just want to ask, if somebody wants to connect with you, Brian, how would they do that?
yeah, super easy. I don't have my LinkedIn profile URL memorized, but find me on LinkedIn. It's Brian Arrington, and it'll say MS and then MBA candidate. And if you're connected with Bryan Shue, just shoot him a message and he can get you connected. Another way is if you go and send an email to support@vets2industry.com. That's vets, VETS, the number 2, industry.com, and just say you want to get connected to Brian Arrington, the founder. That's another way of doing it. And one of my volunteers will get you hooked up with me. I would like to say one thing, Brian, before we get off. Everyone out there, whether or not you are a veteran, a military spouse, a business leader, recruiter, a college student, high school student, you all possess an adaptability that you are not aware of. You have changed multiple times in your life to what you would think is a challenge, but really it's an opportunity to excel. Whether that is going from, if you're a high school student, going from middle school to high school, if you're a college student doing that transition from high school to college, maybe far away from your home, right, from your parents, whether it's you're getting your first job or you're going to your first job interview, whether it's, you know, leaving your parents and joining the military, getting to your first duty station and learning your job for the first time, maybe driving for the first time. If you're from New York City and never driven before and took the subway, and all of a sudden now you're in a transportation unit in the Army, and now you got to drive in a convoy, and you've never driven a vehicle before, and you're driving an MRAP, you know, in Afghanistan. You know, these are all things that you've had to adapt to, and, you know, a challenge, but it's really an opportunity to excel, and you've built a skill set that you can actually do something amazing. Those are all things that you can utilize right now in this pandemic. This is not a time to be scared. This is a time to go back into your soul, look behind in your past and say, okay, I've done this before. All this means is I'm stuck in my house watching Netflix and doing my job, or I'm searching. I have the opportunity to search for jobs, if that's the case. So take this for the opportunity it is to get really good at something, or maybe take a certification course, right? Get on LinkedIn Learning. You know, let's say, man, I've really been wanting to learn Excel a little bit better and I've had no time. Now I've just gained 2 hours of commute time a day. I'm going to become a master at Excel, or I'm going to become a master at Illustrator, whatever it is that you're passionate about, or SQL. These are all things that you can work on now. And so take that as an opportunity.
And I was actually going to ask you what inspiring message would you have for our audience, but man, that was probably the best inspiring message I could ever given somebody. But thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, let's be honest here. If you want to know about inspiring, have a conversation with Brian Arrington. I know we've been friends for 2 years now, and every time we have a conversation, I feel like it's a mind explosion, because it's like you're giving me some extra thoughts that, you know, I probably maybe had for myself, but it was like, you know what, I kind of buried them. But now you're just like, you know what, hey, dig them up. I need you to think about this. So, you know, I want to thank you, Brian, for your time today. I know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this little bit of time with us today, kind of giving us a little bit about you and how we can cope with the new normal. Because where it seems like not normal right now, but who knows, in 6 months it may be how things are. So,
well, I have a message for business leaders out there.
yes.
So
What is
business
that?
leaders, look at right now, look how you're operating your business under a time where you didn't think that your workforce would be able to accomplish at home what it is that you all do in a brick and mortar every day. And they're killing it. They're crushing it for you. Look at the cost savings that you're having right now. The extra man hours that they're actually putting in because they're at home. Think about that. Maybe redesign your processes, because there's more efficiencies than actually having an entire workforce in a brick and mortar. So just kind of think about this. This is a good thing for your business process. In the end, use this as an opportunity. Okay.
Man, fantastic ending. And I think that's a great piece of knowledge for those business leaders out there, for them to kind of chew on and think about as they move forward. Because who knows, this may be a benefit for them to reevaluate that time, or reevaluate their necessity for having their employees sitting in an office for 8 hours a day. You know what? If you can do your job for 8 hours a day in the office, you might be able to do your 8 hours at home where you're comfortable around your family. And so, you know, I agree with you. And I hope our leaders that are watching this take a heed to this and start, you know, evaluating what is it that my team, or what does my teams really need? Do they need to be here? Maybe not. Who knows? Now is your time to know. So, Brian, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
You know, guys and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time listening to this and watching this. And I hope you guys get some great knowledge bombs that were dropped here. And because that's what we want to do here. We want to provide you some knowledge that will help you grow not just your career, but also your network's career. Because again, we're all in this together. So, again, my name is Bryan Shue. Bryan Arrington, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back actually with another episode of Lockdown with Thought Leaders. And by all means, tune in. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great one.
Thanks. Bye, guys.